Hello and welcome back to Learn the Bible in a Year for February 24th, 2026. Today is National Tortilla Chip Day, and it's also Taco Tuesday. So between you and me, if you don't have Mexican food for lunch today, honestly, how dare you? Today we're going to be covering the enthusiastic giving of the Israelites for the tabernacle, a miraculous healing, and a feeding of 4,000, and also finally a heartfelt plea from a lonely king. So let's jump right in. So yesterday we saw the renewal of the covenant after the golden calf incident. Today we see the people's response to God's grace. Moses gathers everyone and reminds them about the Sabbath. It's a hard stop. No work, not even lighting a fire. This is a day for rest and for God. Then he calls for contributions for the tabernacle. Once again, this is not a tax, it's an invitation, and the response is overwhelming. The text says that everyone whose heart was stirred and whose spirit was willing came and gave. The Hebrew word that's used here is the word nadab, which means to be incited from within, to give spontaneously and generously. It's a beautiful picture of a people who are so grateful for God's grace that they can't help but just give back. They bring gold, bronze, silver, fine linens, goat hair, acacia wood, you name it, they brought it. The women who were skilled spinners also brought what they had made, and the leaders brought precious stones. It was a all hands on deck, community-wide explosion of generosity. And then we are reintroduced to Bezalel and Aholiab. Remember, these are the people who were set aside as skilled craftsmen who are going to build this whole thing. And God fills them with his spirit and gives them wisdom, understanding, and the skill of all kinds of crafts. And they are divinely gifted in these arts and they're ready to build a dwelling place for God. But the people keep giving. They bring more and more each morning. It gets to the point where the craftsmen have to go to Moses and say, the people are bringing much more than enough for the service of the work which the Lord has commanded us to do. So Moses has to issue a command for the people to stop giving. Can you imagine this? The generosity was so extravagant, they had to be restrained. What a powerful picture of a people whose hearts are aligned with God's heart. Now, jumping back into the New Testament, last time in Mark, we saw Jesus declare all kinds of food clean, a radical statement that challenged the religious traditions of the day. And today we see him continue his ministry in a Gentile region. They bring him to a man who is deaf and has a speech impediment. Jesus takes him aside privately, away from the crowd. This is sort of a tender, personal moment. He's not just performing a miracle for show, he's caring for an individual. He puts his finger on the man's ears and he spits and touches his tongue, and then he looks up to heaven with a deep sigh. It's a sigh of compassion, of empathy for the broken world. And then he says a single Aramaic word, which is epatha, which means be opened. And immediately the man's ears are opened and his tongue is released, and he begins to speak plainly. This is a direct fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy that the Messiah would unstop the ears of the deaf. Jesus tells them not to tell anyone, but of course they can't help it. The more he tells them not to, the more they proclaim it. They are completely astonished, saying he has done all things well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. Now, right after this, another huge crowd gathers, and they've been with Jesus for 3 days. They have nothing to eat, and Jesus, who is full of compassion, says he doesn't want to send them away hungry. His disciples, in a moment of stunning amnesia, ask, how can one feed these people with bread here in this desolate place? This is almost a comical statement. Have they already forgotten when he fed 5,000 people just a chapter or two ago? But Jesus is patient with his disciples. He asks them what they have, and they say that they have 7 loaves and a few small fish. So, just like before, he gives thanks, breaks the bread, and distributes it, and everyone eats and is satisfied. And they collect 7 large baskets of leftovers, and there was about 4,000 men there, which means there was probably between 12 and 15,000 total people. Now, this miracle, performed in a Gentile region, shows that Jesus' compassion and provision are for all people, not just for Israel. But then the Pharisees show up. Well, I guess they don't really show up. They've been here the entire time because the text says that they're in a desolate place. So it's not like they walked in out of nowhere. They've been there the whole time. And what the religious leaders say is literally astonishing. Remember, we just saw Jesus heal the man who was deaf and had the speech impediment, and we just saw him feed 4,000 people. And what do the Pharisees say? Well, they ask him for a sign from heaven in order to test him. Like, seriously? I just fed 4,000 men plus women and children, and you're asking me to perform a sign? And Jesus does answer them. He says, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Truly, I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation." And he gets into his boat and leaves. And finally, we land in a Psalms here, which is a prayer from David. This is a raw, honest cry from a man who feels completely alone. He says, "Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted." The Hebrew word for lonely here is yakid, which means only one, solitary, or forsaken. It's the same word used to describe Isaac as Abraham's only son. It's the word of profound isolation. So David here feels abandoned, not just by people, but seemingly by God. He's surrounded by enemies and overwhelmed by his own sin and affliction. And he pleads with God to see his distress, to forgive his sins, and to deliver him. He ends with a declaration of hope and a trust that God will redeem Israel out of all of their troubles. This Psalms is a powerful reminder that even the greatest heroes of faith have moments of deep despair and loneliness. And in those moments, the only place to turn is to God. Alrighty, now this podcast is brought to you by Covenant Security Equipment, which is a Christian owned company that partners with building contractors who build with safety in mind. They sell bullet resistant windows, secure transaction systems, and drive through installations, and much, much more. If this is interesting to you, go to covenantsecurityequipment.com. I also want to remind you to pick up a copy of the Learn the Bible in a Year workbook. I did write this book for you, those of you who are listening to this podcast right now. It has additional questions and fun facts about our daily readings. The digital version of this book is 100% for free. You can also pick up the paperback version if that's what you prefer. The link to both of those is in the show notes. What was your main takeaway from today? My main takeaway was definitely the Israelites, what we read in Exodus, how they were so generous out of a response to God's grace. They were so generous, they brought all of the goods to build the tabernacle, and they brought more goods than was even needed. And that's a good reminder for me. I want to posture my heart to be overwhelmed with giving. I want to give cheerfully, generously, out of a response to God's grace, and not out of this sort of obligation. I don't want to feel obligated to give to the Lord. I want to give to Him and to give to others out of a response to the incredible grace that He's had for me in my life and in the life of my family. All right. Well, that is the podcast for today, and I will see all of you cool cats again here tomorrow.